got 8:30. What time you have?
I have 8:30 as well.
Good morning. We'd like to call our work session to order this morning. Just like to welcome you to our work session this morning. And I would ask, please, if you have cell phones, to please turn them off at this time. I'll put them on silence. I would ask, please, if we would stand and have a pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Joyce and prayer by Mayor Pro Tem Reed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? Dear God, we come before you today to seek your guidance and wisdom as we gather for this city council meeting. We ask that you grant our leaders discernment and clarity of thought as we make decisions that impact our community. Help us to prioritize the needs of all citizens, to seek justice and equality, and to work together in harmony. May our discussions be respectful, constructive, and focused on the common good. We pray for your blessing on our city and its leaders. May we be a community that values compassion, kindness, and well-being of all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Item BG, we would like to take off our agenda this morning and put it on our work session, on our May work session. Clerk, if that's okay. Councilmember Whitehouse won't be with us this morning. Topics for discussion. Swearing in, first of all, Judge, our new elected council member, Jim Malinowski, please come forward.
First of all, what politician doesn't want to talk when he has a crowd? Very quickly, I just want to say, as a lawyer, I don't have any friends. I have two best friends, Jim and Boyd Jackson. And so it's with great pleasure that I get to swear Jim into this office. I think that the citizens of this city have done a wonderful job of hiring a super guy who's just going to be great. We'll go ahead and administer the oath. You raise your right. Somebody raise your right. And you do not need to repeat after me. And when I finish, just say, so help me God, or I so help. I, Dr. Jim Malinowski, do swear that I will faithfully and impartially and without fear, favor, or affection discharge my duties as city council member of the city of Madison. I do further solemnly swear and affirm that I am not the holder of any uncounted public money due to state or any political subdivision, that I am not the holder of any office of trust in the government of the United States, any other state, or of any foreign state which I am by the laws of the state of Georgia prohibited from holding, and that I am not a member of the Communist Party, and that I am otherwise qualified to hold said office according to the Constitution and laws of Georgia. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the state of Georgia, and the charter and ordinances and regulations and policies of the city of Madison. That I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of city council member to the best of my ability and without fear, favor, or partiality. I will perform my duties without regard to race, religion, political beliefs, or aspirations. I understand my conduct at all times must be ethical conduct. So help me God. So help me God. Congratulations.
It's in your pocket.
Oh, here we go. We're going on right.
Everybody's thinking she needs to provide us lunch, huh? Oh, my God.
Must be.
Congratulations. Welcome to the team.
Jim, good to have you.
Again, I would like to thank you, Judge, for coming in this morning to swear our council member in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And again, we'd like to take a moment to welcome our newest council member to our team, Councilmember Jim Malinowski, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much. Sure. At this time, topics for discussion from our city manager, Mr. Clem. John?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have three quick items today. The Municipal Gas Authority requires that we have two representatives that can vote at the annual meeting to represent the city. And I usually go to the annual meeting, but if I choose not to attend, then I would request that the council appoint Sean Wood, our DPW director, to stand in for me to take any votes that are required by the Gas Authority.
I don't think that'll be a problem. We can get a nod from our council to put this on our consent agenda. We
Yeah.
can make that happen. Thank you.
The third item is it's that time of year again where the council splits up into subcommittees to evaluate our judge, city attorney, and solicitor. And since it is that time, I would ask that the council move forward and form your committees and begin the process of working with Deborah to schedule those.
I'm ready to make that appointment if you are. Okay. For our solicitor, I have our city manager will be on that committee. I'd like to ask Council Member Eric George to serve as chairperson, and Mayor Peters Reed to also Mayor Pro Tem Reed to serve on this committee along with myself. For our judge, I would like to ask Councilmember Blunt to chair this committee, Councilmember Waggethouse, city manager, and myself. And then for our city attorney, I would like for Mayor Pro Tem Reed to serve as chairperson, city manager, John Clem, and myself as well, along with Councilmember Rick Black.
Question, Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Chair, just one more thing.
I'm sorry.
And if I would like, since our newly elected council member just joining us, I would like for him to serve on all of these committees so he could get a firsthand how it's done. And the chairperson will let you know, our city clerk will let you know when these meetings are going to be held. Excellent. Sure, thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mayor. Maybe a question for Jay, but I believe the legislature this last session changed the terms for municipal court judges to 2 years. Does that mean that he does get reviewed this year and then he's good for 2 years, or did we do that last year for 2 years?
I think we just redid his contract recently, right? We're just completing him recently.
Yeah, we
I
did.
think we did.
We did,
Year ago,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's on a 2 year, but that doesn't prevent you from evaluating him every year.
Right. And if the council,
Okay.
it's your evaluation, if you see fit to do something different, you can, you know. Okay. You have that, do you have that, Madam Clerk? You got all of that, thank you so much. Sure. Okay. John, are you ready again?
Yes, and the last item is just a very brief update on the review of our existing rules and regulations and ordinance relative to our municipal water reservoir. We have Mr. Larry Stevens, our staff person, our water superintendent, who does such a great job for the city here, and with Sean Wood. But we have friends from Falcon Engineering who have been reviewing our ordinances, and I think Todd Cosby's here to give us a brief update in terms of where he is and what our goals are in revising this. As time goes on, it becomes increasingly important for cities across this country to make sure adequate safeguards are in place for their water source. And if anything ever happened to our principal water source at hard labor, we would have to count on our reservoirs. So we want to make sure that we have adequate protections in place. Todd?
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mayor, council members, for having us. Very briefly, our firm, like John said, was hired to come in and look at your watershed management plan, to recommend updates to those to meet state and federal guidelines and standard practices for the industry. Among those changes that we are considering are some updates to your ordinance, your watershed, water supply watershed ordinance. What this does is basically, as stated in the preamble to that ordinance, the city adopted an ordinance back in 2001 that was in alignment with what the county had with regard to watershed protection. And since then, since 2001, the county has updated their ordinance, I think back in 2013 or so. And the city's has remained the same. And so there are differences now between the two ordinances. The recommended changes basically put the city back in alignment with the county, and also recognizes the fact that most of the area that's being protected by this watershed protection ordinance is really within the county's jurisdiction. And from what we see, they're doing a good job of protecting the reservoir, but we need to, and the water supply, but we need to make sure that our city ordinance is in alignment with that and compatible with that. So there's that, as well as we're also recommending on the city's level some updates to the reservoir management plan, specifically Appendix B, which determines what can and cannot be done within the reservoir property and the immediate area around the reservoir. And so there are a number of protections that are more modern standards that are not included in the watershed, or I'm sorry, in the reservoir management plan that was last revised in 1999. So with that, I think, I'll say one more thing. So additionally, what we're doing as part of our work with the city is that we are making a number of other recommendations with regard to the operation of the reservoir. We are not going to be making huge improvements because what you have in place right now already works. Additionally, there are some ordinance updates that we are considering presenting to the county with the city's blessing that would just update their ordinance to be more in alignment with state and federal guidelines. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have.
So have you decided yet what the changes are going to be from the 2001, I guess, ordinance to the new ordinance?
Yes, sir.
What changes will be made, do you know?
So there's basically in the city's ordinance right now, there's some definitions for the watershed that is being protected that are not really in alignment with what the county's definition for that reservoir or for that watershed is, as well as there are permitting processes that are out of date. They're not in alignment with your other city ordinances, nor with what the county's doing right now to protect the watershed. So this really puts an awful lot of the, again, it recognizes the fact that the county's responsibility for the area within its jurisdiction is really the entity that is going to ensure your protection of your watershed. The city obviously will have, as part of the ordinance updates, the city will have input and the ability to deny or approve plans within the watershed, but it takes some of the conflicting language out.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I want to make sure it's recognized that the county manager, the planning director, and other staff have been very helpful to the city. This is a kind of a unique situation where it's our water source, we own the property, but it's in the county. So we have to collaborate and work closely with the county. And as Todd says, they have been very helpful. And I just wanted to thank Adam and his whole staff for his willingness to work with us on this.
Okay. So also you're going to get back with the council once you and the county get back together again and sort of work some of this out, or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we wanted to make sure that the city was okay with their portion before we, moved forward with the county's ordinance updates.
So what we're doing, Mayor, is that when the ordinance that you have a copy of in front of you is finalized, it will be reviewed by staff. We'll have the Public Works, our planning department, and other staff people review it to make any recommendations, and then we'll be back, I would say in the next month or so, to the council for action.
Question, if I could. What I like about what you've produced here is that it recognizes the main purpose of that reservoir, and that is as a water supply for the citizens of Madison. It is not for recreation, it is not for sport, it's for an integral part of our water system. And then I think the protections you put in really address that directly. Let me ask you, the restrictions on some of the use now that are included in your recommendation here, is that common amongst, you kind of touched on it very briefly there, but is it common for other cities and other jurisdictions to put those types of limitations and controls on their water sources?
Yes, sir, it is. So you have kind of two different flavors of watershed or reservoir management. And the state does allow, if it's within your water supply reservoir plan that has to be approved by the state. It does allow you to have some recreational uses if that's in your plan. However, that's more, I would say, more compatible with larger watersheds like Hard Labor Creek Reservoir, Lake Oconee. I'm just giving examples here. Very large reservoirs that have much bigger volumes of water, and in this case, this reservoir off of Doster Road that the city owns is a very small reservoir by comparison, and its watershed is very small by comparison, and so any kind of pollution is it's not just detrimental, it could be catastrophic, as far as if Hard Labor Creek if we go through a drought and Hard Labor Creek is not sufficient for supplying the city with enough water, then the reservoir there at Doster Road has to be utilized, and it needs to be clean. If it's got fuel in it, if it's got other trash and debris in it, then it's going to take a lot of cleaning up of that water to make it usable. So, that's an extra expense to the city, potentially a lot of liability and other hazards to the city. So we want to try to avoid that, protect what we can there at the reservoir.
So I thank Councilmember George reference to recreation, and I know in the past, a lot of our communities, citizens used it to go fishing in, or I think maybe city employees or their families. So will this cut fishing out as constituents out from using that lake there, the reservoir? I mean, what
So, yes, sir. So that would, the resolution that we are presenting there for amendment to, the amendments to Appendix B are to cut out any kind of unauthorized activity, and unauthorized activities will be recreation, hunting, fishing, swimming, all of that. Like, we feel like it is paramount to protect that reservoir from any kind of contamination.
Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
And Todd, thank you for your input and sharing this with us. And to that point, on Appendix B, I had read through it because I share the same concern, Mayor, that you do. I say concern. I know that with past city manager, he would allow employees, firefighters, family to get a key from them, go in, tell them, leave it cleaner than you left it, lock it up, bring me back the key. And it was at the city manager's. It wasn't open to the public, but the city manager was able to do that. And I wasn't sure, I see in Appendix B where it says that they can't do that, but I also see where they can with permission of the city manager. I think that's something to consider. I think it's a nice perk for employees to be able to go and fish there. Of course, they can't use gas motors. They can just use, paddles or electric trolling motors. And so many of our big reservoirs, and they are big, and I'm not suggesting that ours is big enough to open to the public, but they allow everything from camping and hiking and fishing and trails and bicycling, so just something to consider.
So, yes, sir. I recognize that. It is it's our recommendation that for the size and for the purpose that this reservoir serves, that we restrict that kind of recreational use. Again, that may not apply to, if the city were to acquire some other lake and set it aside as a reservoir, that same policy may not need to be applied to that. But for this particular one, it's such a small reservoir, and that it really is the city's only backup. So we feel like water quality is again, I hate to use the word again, paramount. It's critically important that the city have clean water that's available, on demand.
We asked Falcon to bring a national perspective to this in terms of what cities around the country do in terms of protection. The truth is that we've been very lax in terms of oversight and in terms of regulation, and there has been a shift away from water quality protection and the fact that this is a drinking water source to a recreational facility. And you're right, in the past it was nice for employees to be able to fish there and do whatever they wanted to do there. But the fact is, the employees didn't pay for that land, the taxpayers did. And I think that it is not right to give employees benefit that our taxpayers who paid for the property don't get. And so we approach this in terms of a national perspective, and are we protecting the quality of our drinking water for our citizens? And that needs to be first and foremost. be nice to allow fishing, it'd be nice to allow all kinds of recreational activity, but that's not the purpose. That's not why the city went to the taxpayers to buy this thing and to create this thing to begin with. And we found in our comparison to other cities that we were lax in terms of our rules and regulations, and not only was our rules and regulations lax, we weren't even enforcing the rules that we had. And so we brought in Falcon to be an independent, objective observer in terms of what this is. And the second issue as city manager is I just don't support giving a big perk to employees that, I mean, if it's okay to have fishing there, why wouldn't it be okay to allow our citizens who paid for this? I just don't agree with that at all. And so first and foremost, this is about water quality, drinking. The standards that are in place are not adequate in comparison to other cities to protect the drinking water for our citizens if Hard Labor Creek goes through a drought situation, or if it gets polluted. I mean, more and more often nationally, the concern is pollution, potential pollution, someone polluting or putting something into our water source. If that happens, we are going to desperately need this reservoir as a backup for our citizens. And we just found in the evaluation that we were lax in terms of the evaluation. And so that's where we're coming from. So you're right, in the past, it was nice to be able to allow certain people to enjoy this, but in so doing, it wasn't protecting the water source, and that is going to be our number one priority.
And I might add, if I could, that if you lived in Madison 6 years ago, or if you were one of our water customers in the county 6 years ago, you drank that water out of that reservoir. You bathed in it, you drank it, and that, to me, is the most important thing we need to consider. We will be using that water again in the future for our drinking water, for our bathing water, and that, I agree with John, that to me is the paramount purpose of that reservoir that the citizens did pay for, and I think I commend you for the recommendations you've made. One question, if I could, you mentioned the state. Will this reservoir management plan require state approval, or?
It still does, yes, sir. The changes that we're making are in alignment with what the state already requires. So it's basically, we're just removing the recreational, public access to this facility.
So that means that this would be submitted to a DNR or DCA, whatever, and?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I, just to follow up, and John and Eric, I hear you. Todd, I hear you. You're the engineer, I'm not. I am for clean water. I understand the purpose. In doing some reading, Lake Varner in Newton County, Cornish Creek in Newton County, Bear Creek Reservoir, who serves several counties, Hard Labor Creek Regional, they all say the first purpose and the reason behind it is to provide ample water supply. Not arguing that, and I'm not for polluting water and serving and giving that to anybody. But they also allow those things. So I'm just saying I don't understand the and it's fine, but I don't understand why catching a brim or a bass out of there in a canoe pollutes the water any more than animal carcasses and, deer and hogs and buzzards and whatnot that are there anyway. So
Understood, yes,
Yeah.
sir. And if I can, just very briefly, they say that the solution to pollution is dilution. The more water you have to spread out those contaminants, the less it's, a burden on public safety and on water treatment. So, but the main difference between those reservoirs that you're referencing that have recreational uses is the watershed size. And in this particular case, the watershed for this small reservoir is very small. Like it's only a couple hundred acres as opposed to a couple hundred square miles, let's say, for for some of these larger reservoirs. So you're talking about a massive scale difference. Additionally, I would say, the pollution that's associated with just like somebody taking a canoe out and fishing, whatever, that's minimal. I will agree, as far as there's not a whole lot of sediment being stirred up or other contamination that's just with regard to that activity. It's really the associated things. When you start getting a lot of people out there, they bring their bags of chips and their their drinks and whatever, and you can get an awful lot of unintended pollution of that water body. When you look at like stormwater management, people say, well, I've got to cut my lawn and I've got to fertilize and I've got to use, weed control and whatever. And that's fine as long as you're doing it properly on an individual lot basis. But when everybody's doing it and they're not doing it properly and they're blowing their grass clippings down the storm drain and everything, then it starts to become a problem downstream. And it's similar in this regard.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Just thank you. As long as we have clean water, and I do agree if we're going to allow anyone to use it, it should be taxpayers, it should be everyone. So just thank you for what you're doing, and I know you're speaking of size, and the size is the most important thing, am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for what you've done for our city.
Mayor, can I add just one thing?
Sure.
I see Mike Crawford is here from Falcon Design, and I just wanted to, what I was going to do is the end of the meeting, but as long as Mike's here, Mike is a generous donor for our April 15th GMA District 5 listening session, which will be held in this room on, I think it's a Tuesday, tax day, which I believe all of our council members have gotten GMA invitations from Sherry to sign up for that. I encourage you all to come, and I want to thank Mike for being a sponsor for that event again.
Okay, thank you so much, okay,
Thank you.
for the update, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Mr. Clem, anything else?
No, that's it, sure.
Okay. The National Society of Daughters of the American Revolution, Rebecca.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I am a representative of Daughters of American Revolution, and you saw me before when we talked about our proclamation for the 250th birthday of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I don't know if you recall the bicentennial, so what we are trying to do is create the excitement for that we had for the bicentennial, for the, and I can't say it right, semi-sesquicentennial event. And cities and states across the nation are preparing for this big birthday for the country. And so we have another proposal before you. It is a banner that asks people to prepare to celebrate. And I have been in conversation with Sarah Weibel and with Ken Coker, but I'm not sure really all the things that I need to do. So I'm coming before you. You have a copy of the banner. It can be modified however you want. I have not bought it yet. That's one thing. The other part is that we'd like to have a dedication for this sometime in the next 2 months, mainly because we're talking about a year ahead. So we're asking people to prepare for a year, so we want to get them fired up, and then we'll have ancillary activities throughout the year to have people talk about it. And also, I have a grant to pay for the banner, and I have some restrictions on that I have to do a few things. Now, I know y'all don't have to follow what we do, but I'm asking if we could possibly have the banner produced and hang it, and the area that we wanted to hang it was on the wall of the city planner's office. And so people across from Madison Produce or going down and right at the traffic light, they can look and see it. It will be there, and it would be there for a year. So that's a long time, I understand, but we just want to see if we could have a dedication. Well, first of all, I got to get approval for it. So, and the wording and everything else that we'd like to have, and I'm really open to changing anything because we've not purchased it. So that's what I'm coming forward to you today. Did you all see it? I mean, we can redesign it, new, different language, anything.
And that would be on the Main Street office, not the planning.
Right, I'm sorry, Ken, yes, the Main Street office, on that road, on the North Main Road, right there at North Main. The reason why we have the city town park, but I know there's restrictions on how long you can hang the sign there. And I don't believe, talking to Ken, there's a restriction hanging the sign in the city planning office for the duration, the time that I want. Possibly, I mean, I can budget with the national, because this is a national grant, that if we do this in June, we can say, late June, that once we hit 4th of July, we say we have a year out. So that's pretty much what I'm thinking. They asked us to get everything done in February, obviously not done in February, but I wanted to see what your thoughts are and what you all wanted to do, and if I can do it anyway. I mean, I haven't produced anything, just a design with working with New Art.
So I would just say, Rebecca, we certainly appreciate what you're doing and thinking about this for now and then when it's going to come time to celebrate. But can I maybe ask you to, I would suggest that you maybe get with our city manager and our city manager get with staff and come up with some kind of plan how we can do this.
Okay.
Because I do know, once we start hanging banners on buildings, it'll be somebody else next month, it'll be somebody else next month. So I think we need some kind of restriction as to how we want to do this and move forward with this. And is that okay, city manager, if we get with
I'd
you
be
and the
happy
staff
to.
and let y'all get that figured out?
I'd be
Okay.
happy to
Good.
set up a meeting with you and with Deborah. Is that okay? Can we do that?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes. Oh, the proclamation also, that's the other part of this. You reviewed the proclamation at the last work session, and we're asking that we have an official announcement at the next, the April 14th meeting. So we'll have members of our chapter and reading an official reading of the proclamation in April, and then so basically that helps us kick off officially the 250th year. Even though it is in April, I'd love to get that done and signed, and we'll be ready to move forward on the other things.
We'll look forward to the review, put that on our agenda for our April meeting. We'll look
Okay.
forward to it.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, and I appreciate it, and I will get with the city manager. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
R.L. Rose and Company Distillers, Jason Wood.
Morning.
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 Thank you for having us here, your time today. My name is Jason Wood, and this is my father-in-law, Andy Sudduth, and we're here representing R.M. Rose Company Distillers based out of Mount Airy, Georgia. We are looking to open a tasting room here in Madison, Georgia. The functions of that tasting room would be to bottle, sample, and sell R.M. Rose whiskeys. Secondary function would be to have a small functional still if the square footage allowed for that. And lastly, to have 2 or 3 seasonal cocktails that we would offer there as well. This will be the second tasting room we've opened, with the first being at Dillard, Georgia, that was established in 2017. Since then, it has gained a large following, and it has been voted best distillery in Georgia 2 years in a row in 2023 and 2024. It has also generated more tourist traffic through Dillard, Georgia as a result. We feel it'd do the same for Madison if we were allowed to open one here. Like Madison, history is a key element to our brand. And Andy here is more of an expert on that part of it, so I was going to turn over to him to tell you a bit more about the history of R.M. Rose and basically who we are.
I'm Andy Sudduth, and thank y'all, Mayor and City Council, for having us here. I opened this distillery, I incorporated in 2013 and got open to the public in 2017 in Dillard, Georgia. We done real well, and it's a good company. A little bit of history about RM Rose. We revamped the old company that started in Atlanta in 1867, closed down in 1917, so we opened it back up in 2017. So, and we was just hunting. Jason's done a good job of searching out places to put another tasting room, and he has found out Madison is a great town. And I've done a lot of speaking down here at some of the antique shows about RM Rose, and I've collected all the whiskey jugs back from 1800s and I got a lot of history. So it's a real good company, a low-key company. It's family-oriented when you come in and do the tastings, and it's just a low-key, company. So, and the state has passed some bills back in 2017 that helps us get into little towns to do tastings, to have tourists and like that.
So have you found a place here in Madison that you're looking at, or?
We've looked at a few. The tricky part is with the TTB laws, you cannot finish the TTB until you actually have a location. So we've been working with some of the people here in the city, Sarah Y. Bell and some others, and there were some available that we could use. The only problem is you can't finish the TTB until you have it. So essentially what we'd have to do is go find a spot, rent it, and then we could finish our TTB, which would take like 84 days approximately. So assuming you gave us permission to do it, we're going to be sitting on that property waiting for that to get approved for about 3 months. But there are a few available ones. That's the thing. I don't know how much square footage we're going to have to work with because there's only so many that are available. So if it's closer to 2,000 square feet, we'll probably just do the tasting room. If it's 3,000 square feet, we probably could do a still in there as well, which would mostly just be for show and tell, but, people like that when they come into the place,
So can I ask you a question, John? Will they have to work with you and planning director, Main Street director, but how about you?
Yes, they have been working with Sarah and with planning, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but Molly or Jay, are you aware of what permissions they need do they need something from the city council?
They will, and Molly, feel free to hop in here too. It's going to probably require a zoning change to allow this. It's a new use that's never been done in Madison before. It's pretty, unique. And me and Molly have looked at it, and I've looked at sort of the state regulations, which I'm sure these guys are familiar with. And the state regulates distilleries and tasting rooms pretty heavily. I think each distillery is only allowed to have 3 or 4 tasting rooms around the state. Is that correct?
Yes.
That number?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the regulations on how they can transport in between those their product in between those distilleries and stuff is all regulated. So I think me and Molly had talked about sort of mirroring the state law as sort of the city regulations too, so that and we can make them more stringent. We just can't make them less. So, but it would take probably.
So they're hoping to get the pulse of the council to see if they're philosophically in favor of this, and then they would go through the planning process.
Will the requirement for our bars, if you will, to sell food, would that apply to a tasting room?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
You can definitely make them.
Yeah,
do
that's
that. Yeah.
completely up to you. I know the tasting element is pretty limited and based on the proposal that was sent to you via the letter from Jason. This would require 2 elements, so an adoption of a code in your code of ordinances to establish distillery tasting rooms, as well as a land use line item in our land use table. And conditions can be placed on that in terms of the number of drinks that can be sold, distancing requirements, all of that sort of thing. So that can be workshopped by the council to your comfort.
Is it true, if I may ask, is it true that food isn't a heavy component in your business, or is it?
No.
Yeah.
It's not a component at all. I mean, our vision would be that if we had a space that was large enough for people to sit and be around, what we'd probably do is try to partner with a local businesses to have food provided by them, and like have a QR code or something on the table where they could just order from, you know, another local place that did provide food. But for our model, we're not going to do food, no.
And Jason, will there be any spittoon hookers or pool tables?
Scout's honor, won't happen. Look, we really do like this town, and we really just want to add to what this town is and represents. And that's one of the reasons we want to be here, is because that's what we're about. We're about the history, we're about family, we're not about partying. You know, our demographic is like people over 30, you know, just people who enjoy the history of it and you know, enjoy just wholesome things, nothing bad, nothing like that.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
We see who asked about the hookers and strippers, so you know who won it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming to our city. That is very interesting. I would like to hear more, so thank you.
So can they get a nod from the council if they need to move forward? Does the council have any problem with them moving forward with this?
I don't have any issues. I have no issues.
Good, okay. So Molly, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, sure. Mid-year report from Madison Morgan CBB, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council, for having me here to do our mid-year report, and welcome Councilman Malinowski. Excited to have you as part of our council. And so I'll just do a little brief information about what we do. So we are the official destination marketing organization for the city of Madison, and we're completely funded by tourist dollars. My past chair actually did create a short training program for newly elected officials, so I'll be happy to offer that opportunity for you to be able to learn more about organization. And then I'll just kind of go through our mid-year report. I kind of have a similar format so that you can understand the information that we're presenting on all the things that we do to market Madison and Morgan County as a tourist destination. So I'll just start with our mission, which is always a good place to start.
Have you turned it on?
I don't know how to do that.
There's a switch on the side of it.
Aha! I'm going to figure it out. And you should be happy that I'm your lead in technology and digital advertising. Oh my goodness. Aha! I see it. There we go. Okay. So our mission is to boost economic vitality and development by inspiring tourists to come, stay, and take part in the local tourism economy. And with that, we do the PESO model of marketing, which is paid advertising, earned media, social media marketing, and owned assets. So we'll start with our paid advertising, which is really our traditional advertising, which includes, for example, our billboard. We have window clings at the Augusta Visitor Information Center. We do advertising in magazines, and then we also do digital advertising campaigns. Of course, we know most people now search online to figure out the next place that they want to go. So we do a lot of Google and native advertising directly to our website to really push that call to action to plan your trip to Madison. One of the things that you'll notice here is because we were working this year with the deficit from the previous fiscal year, that we did have to cut one of our major digital campaigns that usually goes out in winter, which is of course a slower time for us, to be able to really focus in on spring. And you'll see the results of that as we get into our owned assets and the effect that that has to visitors to our website. But first, we're going to start with the good news, which is our earned media. Earned media is one of the things that I started a little over 3 years ago, right after the pandemic, to really put a big push and investment in earned media. It's been one of the things that's really paid off the best for our community. I think our community has a great story to tell, and news really loves that. And so that's one of the things that we've continued pushing our investment for. And not only are we continuing pushing investment, but we're having really great partners who are seeing the value of that to be able to support the different costs that there are in hosting media. You'll see that we've actually beaten our goal in PR in the number of media visits by triple. of the amount of media that we've been able to host here, with 12 media visits already over this period. And we do follow the same fiscal year as the city, so this report is on July through December. Through those media visits and our pitching, we've generated over 648,000 impressions, so that's opportunities for people to see content that's written about Madison and Morgan County, and that has an approximate advertising equivalency value of $612,000. So that is over double the amount that is invested in our organization through tourism dollars. And again, that's 648% of our impressions goal and 600% of our ad value equivalency goal. So earned media is just really doing great. And with that, of course, it's because we have such great assets to be able to promote, like the Safari Park. Some of our big earned media wins that we've had have been in Country Living, Atlanta Magazine, Southern Living, MSN, Fox. And you know, of course, we've been able to be on those best of lists that are so important nationally and even some worldwide. For example, the recent Time one was a big effort by our PR person. And then we'll get into our social media marketing. For this, we have both a paid and organic strategy. And so we're really following the same goals and investment that we have done in the previous years, which is enhancing brand awareness through expanding audience reach and engaging our audience through likes, messages, shares, and comments. So we invest in 4 different platforms, which is Facebook, where we're working to increase our followers. Right now, we are at 99% of our goal for the year, and we're at 13,767 followers. And 350,000 impressions. So that is, again, pushing people to see the content that we're creating to encourage them and inspire them to come to Madison. With Instagram, that's one that we're growing in. That's one that does have a younger audience. We've been working to increase our followers by 7%. We are now at 5,700 followers, or we were at the end of December. And we have a reach of 35,000 with that goal to get to 50,000 over the fiscal year. Then, of course, Pinterest, that one is really more of an organic goal to really create a lot of different content. Pinterest is an interesting one because it's one that people actually use for planning. So that's something that we want to be involved in order to be able to be kind of further down that marketing funnel to get people actually remembering and calling back the information, whereas a lot of the other previous ones are more in that awareness stage and creating awareness about Madison as a travel destination. And these are just some of our top performing posts, so you can kind of see what that actually looks like, the kind of content that we're putting out. And then our owned assets. So one of the biggest things is, of course, is visitmadisonga.com. That's something that we overhauled about 4 years ago to be really mobile first, and that's the main tool that we use to really push those call to actions to have visitors plan their trips. We have both an organic strategy and a paid strategy for that. So, of course, organic is optimizing our content for search engines, and that's trip inspirations, itineraries, and other key landing pages that follow an editorial calendar on trends and things that people are thinking about when they're thinking about travel. We also maintain a comprehensive events calendar for Madison and Morgan County, and landing pages for attractions, shops, restaurants, all those things that you need to know when you're thinking, where do you want to go? Of course, again, those winter campaigns were on hold to spring because of that funding deficit. So you'll see from this that we did have a significant drop, which is, of course, going to be seen because we could not invest in that paid digital campaign. So that was about 27% drop in our website visitors over that time, because those are usually really targeted ads that we're able to invest in to get people to come to our website and then, of course, come to Madison by learning more. And you can see on that right bar graph just the comparison for the same period of the previous year. And this is just some of the top performing pages beyond our, of course, home page, which is usually always the top performer for most everybody's websites. And then, of course, our Welcome Center. So we operate our Welcome Center 360 days a year, as often the very first stop for visitors as they're coming into town. And we welcomed 5,037 visitors so far for the fiscal year, or the mid-year of the report. And we really maintain our success, kind of our KPI, for how are we ranking and how are our reviews with visitors. And we are retaining that 5 bubble rating with TripAdvisor and getting really great comments from the interactions that they have with our staff, which are really experts in the community. And of course, keeping it clean, because it does serve as a public restroom, so it meets an important need. An e-newsletter, that is something that we started about 3 years ago. And so our goals are really for growth with that one. And that's a really good one because it's an organic way to reach people, so it doesn't cost money for us to create beyond, of course, staff time. But it's a good way to get directly into the inboxes of people that have been here before or are considering coming here to understand what's coming up next. So with that, we are already at about half of our goal at mid-year point. We have a little over 3,000 subscribers to our e-newsletter, and then we have been able to maintain an open rate above our industry average. The industry average is 20%. We actually have a 53% open rate, so that's really, really good to make sure that people are, actually engaged with our content, with the information we're sharing. And then some of the other things that we do, of course, in the Camera Ready Liaison for the City of Madison, we participate in regional travel associations like Georgia's Trail of Legacy and Lore and Georgia's Lake Country. This was a win for us. I just recently finished up serving as chair of Georgia's Lake Country Regional Travel Association. I'm proud to share we actually had a best year ever for their website as we tried to work on a really comprehensive editorial calendar and working more on SEO and kind of digital strategies, which I really believe in for how people choose to travel today. And so we had a best year ever with over 30,000 visitors to that website. And that is it, really. If you all have any questions about your all's marketing team.
Thank you so much for that report. We all got a copy of it earlier, and it's a great report. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Transportation plan draft. Bert Kirkendall and Molly. Molly, you ready?
Hi, thank you so much for having us this morning. Bert's going to do the majority of the talking, but I just want to sort of orient you. We began this process in the middle of last year. We kicked off with an article in our Main Street Matters newsletter, announcement at our council meeting once we chose TSW and Bert to lead the planning process. We had 2 project advisory group meetings. Yes.
So, can y'all hear Molly okay?
I'll lean in.
Everybody.
I'll lean in. We had 2 project advisory group meetings. Those were representatives from around the city, residents, business owners, elected and appointed officials. We had 3 online surveys, 1 in-person open house at Town Park. And those surveys were throughout the process sort of an iterative, getting feedback, providing content, getting feedback, providing content, that sort of thing. We now have our draft before you. Again, this is not finished. This is, again, another part of that iterative process. We want to hear from you all what you like, what concerns you have, where we need to tweak things. We also expect to get public comment at this point, which we will include in that process. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bert to just sort of walk you through the plan generally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Great, thank you, Molly. And I just realized you have to make me a presenter so I can share my screen. And can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, that worked, thank you. Mayor Perriman and council, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today to present the draft report. And I've been told I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to hit this really quickly and leave any time for questions open at the end. So feel free to slow me down at any point. But really appreciate the city giving us the opportunity to work on this great project. I am an engineer and planner with TSW, and really enjoy working with medium and small-sized communities, and have really enjoyed this project and working with your people. I'm going to jump into the plan goals real quickly. I think it's really important, and these were developed really closely with the steering committee or the project advisory committee, city staff, and also through the engagement of the public. These concerns and goals really rose to the surface. So really considering accessibility and connectivity for all ages, abilities, and modes, enabling safe walking, biking, and karting to daily needs. So, you know, kind of the efficient daily transportation is the focus of the plan. Improving pedestrian safety, ensuring that transportation improvements enhance or maintain the city's small town character, reconnecting isolated and disinvested communities by removing barriers and creating new connections, reducing traffic congestion at intersections, and promoting calmer and safer driving on neighborhood and downtown streets, rerouting truck traffic away from downtown and neighborhoods, and alleviating impacts to noise, safety, and small town experience, and then making sure that the plan is very practical and very doable. And so we're going to hit a lot of those highlights. We really delved into the existing conditions, including looking at the past planning efforts and building on that foundation. This wasn't starting from scratch, but really building on a lot of the great planning that's happened in the city to date. But also doing a very in-depth data dive into things like connectivity, traffic patterns, and the traffic data we have is really pretty amazing and robust. It's called streetlight data, and it is daily traffic and also intersection turning traffic for every single street in town. Not only traffic, but also truck numbers, truck counts, also speeds. So very intense data for every single street in town was utilized. Safety, looking at where crashes are happening, unsafe intersections, where pedestrians are getting hit, people on bicycles are getting hit, where injuries and fatalities are happening. Looking at the context for land use, including current and future land use, important destinations, and existing pedestrian and bike infrastructure, street infrastructure. And we'll look at traffic level of service in a minute, but we also focused on level of comfort. So you've heard of LOS probably, that's dealing with traffic delay. LOC is looking at it from the pedestrian perspective. Where does it feel comfortable? Where does it feel safe to walk in the city? And also, where does it feel safe and comfortable to bicycle in the city? Molly mentioned really all the kind of thorough and robust public engagement efforts. We really tried to be creative with those, and also really tried to make this plan accessible, and not only graphically accessible, but we try to minimize the engineerese, which we engineers like to use, but we want to make sure that this plan is very legible to the city and not super technical jargon. So all that to kind of dive into the concept plan, the recommendations. This map has everything. It's a lot on there. It's layered, so we kind of peel the layers off to look at individual items, which includes looking at pedestrian infrastructure, recommendations for new sidewalk improvements, crosswalks, with greenways and bikeways, recommendations for new greenway and trail connections. A lot of this is building on the previous work, but also some new recommendations. Bikeways, I think a new concept here is the idea of the bike route or bike boulevard that looks at low traffic, low speed streets, and creating a good network of those for bicycle and for golf cart travel, and really making that official through wayfinding and through mapping, branding and wayfinding. And then street connections. So those are street connections that both the city and county and state can pursue, but also street connections that are recommended to happen with new development to ensure that the historic street grid is continued as the city grows and develops. The bypass ideas connecting 83 to 441 were really crucial. We'll talk about that in a second with the traffic analysis. So with traffic capacity, we looked at corridor, what's called volume over capacity, is essentially the capacity of streets, but also zoomed in to intersection level of service. And level of service is a measure of delay. So level of service A means there's no delay whatsoever. Level of service F means there's a breakdown, essentially like an intersection that would be the equivalent of having to wait through multiple signal cycles to get through an intersection. So we looked at every intersection, the current conditions, but also looking at future conditions based on historical growth trends. And do see a lot of problem areas for intersections and segments. And then based on the recommendations previously shown with street connectivity, looking at what would the impact of that be on that intersection level of service. And we get into details too, not just we don't want to leave this at the really high level map view. We want to zoom in, look at what does that mean for individual streets. So part of that is planning for future streets, whether it's through development, whether it's through city project or state projects on state routes. What kind of streets, what should future streets look like that promote this complete street idea, that these are streets that are safe, they're efficient vehicles, but they also are designed to encourage people to drive the speed limit, that make it safe for pedestrians and for bikes, and also provide things like on-street parking to serve commercial development. But then also looking at specific street retrofits. So some of the key ones are Main Street, going through the heart of the city, East Avenue that serves the schools, and we can come back and look at details too if you have questions about that. And neighborhood streets like Old Post Road and Academy Street. Also diving into intersections, looking at specific ideas. Spend a lot of time on the Post Office Square. It's the heart of the city. It's the heart of pedestrian activity for the city as well. It's also a confluence of a lot of traffic. There are a lot of trucks, there's a lot of traffic, state routes, so there's a lot happening here. And we developed a concept for how the square can still function as an important transportation hub for the city. How can it better facilitate that, in fact? But also, how can it also facilitate safer pedestrian activity in the heart of the city? And we looked in detail at the triangle. The triangle of South Main Street, Edenton Road, Ward Road. A lot of crashes are happening in these locations. There are a lot of issues with sight distance, and also with confusion of traffic flow, especially for visitors. So we looked at a concept that can really kind of simplify the traffic operations here, but also make this much safer for people walking. And there's a lot of pedestrian activity here, a lot of residences, a lot of people walking to the grocery stores and to other destinations on Edenton Road itself. So I encourage you to take a closer look at that as well. Looking at tactical approaches, how can changes be made kind of quickly? It's great to go after a grant and do the big changes, but also how can changes be made quickly that make neighborhoods safer? Looking at potential for green infrastructure to deal with stormwater on a linear basis, and also making recommendations for policy and regulations, program recommendations, which includes the recommendation to adopt a complete streets ordinance. And boiling all that down into an implementation matrix to make sure the city has the tools to take the next steps, as opposed to just having, kind of a plan or an idea for the future. Really, what are those step-by-step, implementation ideas to get to that level, to the next level for the city? So that was a lot. I'm sorry if that was too fast, but I did want to leave time for any kind of questions or any kind of engagement.
And just to wrap that up, we, expect that you'll want to sit with this for a while and really dig through the plan. And so this is just your first opportunity to get that introduction to it, ask any questions you might have now, and then come back either at another work session or a regular meeting for our next discussion. Completely up to you how you want to move forward with this.
So I know there's a committee who's working on this plan. What's the perception of the committee as y'all put this?
So the project advisory group, the perception of the plan as it relates to their comments and feedback.
Yes.
Our understanding is they feel that it has responded to the information that has been given. We are actually going to be wanted to bring it to you first, and then the website will be updated today with a link to the plan, a video of today's meeting so that people can get an overview who weren't here this morning, and then we'll get any additional comments. There isn't another project advisory group meeting. You all are the decision makers, and so the project advisory group gave us the input to create the plan, and you all are the people that we want to hear the sort of final say on. So.
Right. So is it possible, though, because this is, to me, is going to affect the entire city of Madison, so could we just have a community meeting to invite the community in, or because we're talking about north, east, south, and west, and we don't want to just focus on one particular neighborhood, we want to focus on all the neighborhoods in our city, so can we just have an open community meeting to get feedback from our community?
Yeah, that's typically what we would expect to do at one of your regular meetings, but if you'd like to do that at a separate meeting, we can absolutely do that. So you just let us know how you want us to
How does the council
organize
feel
that.
about that?
I think that's a great suggestion, Mayor. I've already received, even though this hasn't been, the plan hasn't been widely distributed, I've already received a number of communications with individual concerns about some of the recommendations, and so I think some kind of a public meeting for people to kind of air what they see as good with the report and what is wrong with the report.
Absolutely, and like I said, that was expected as part of your public meeting, but would you want that as a standalone meeting or just as at an upcoming regular meeting?
Just an upcoming meeting, just a meeting besides just a council meeting. Just have
So a standalone meeting.
Right,
okay.
yes.
All right.
I think if I could just add one concern I had, there's a growth chart in your report. It kind of ends with 2020. Those numbers I'm sure are accurate, showing a 1.4% average growth per year going back over the last 20 years. What it is missing is the rapid growth increase since 2020, and the implications for that population increase on traffic seems to be immense. Just forgive the quality of what I just handed out. It's a little bit shaky, but screenshot very blurry. I had to write in a few numbers, but for example, the 2020 census has 4,258 people in the city of Madison. The U.S. Census Bureau estimate for 2023, 2 years ago, has it jumped up 700 people. That's like 15% in 3 years. The estimate going on into 2025 has another jump of 400. I mean, it's a huge population increase, and I'll give one to you, and I apologize for the quality of that. But just when I look at this chart in the report, it shows kind of just a steady, and it was till 2020, but I think it's really important that we look at the more recent growth and what implications that might have, because everyone knows the obvious, that more citizens, which means more vehicular traffic on our roads, and I think that needs to be considered. But I would like the idea of a town hall meeting myself, that's just me, to kind of let people have a chance to weigh in on what they can see is good and what is bad with it, as opposed to doing it at a council meeting. That's just my feeling.
Great. And do you have a timeline you'd like to host that? Or do you want-
I guess we could leave it at your discretion,
Okay.
but, you guys continue to work on this. It was a good time that you think you could bring the community together.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Yes, I would like a town hall meeting as well, but can we possibly make sure we have it in the afternoon and not in the morning?
So midday?
No midday.
Not midday, probably about
Oh,
5:30
okay.
evening.
Evening, okay,
Yeah.
Evening.
got it.
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
we'll make that happen. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks so much for the update. We appreciate the work you're doing, and thank you, Mr. Kirkendall, as well. We appreciate you working with us.
Thank you so much, Mayor.
Sure.
Council, thank you.
Yeah, there's a ton of detail and data in here that is really good, and I commend you for putting all that together.
Okay,
Very much.
commission appointment protocol process and applications. Council member, it's yours.
Yeah, this kind of gets back to our obligation as council members to appoint members of our commissions. Now, as a relatively small city, we have a lot of commissions. I think we have 8 appointed commissions, if I'm not mistaken. That's probably more than a lot of smaller cities, but we really benefit greatly by the work that our citizens put in for free to help the city with these various commissions. Some have legislative authority. Our HPC can say yes or no to design changes on people's houses. We have a corridor commission that has legislative authority to approve or not approve designs of businesses down our main business corridors. And some are just more kind of advisory, but it's really an important component of how we run our city. And I've felt recently that we're not properly sharing the responsibility for making those appointments. We on the council actually vote them, so probably the primary responsibility is ours as council members. I think that responsibility to recruit good members should be shared by existing members of those commissions and with the city staff that is assigned to work with the commissions. So as I look at the process, I've distributed to you a document that I believe Ken told me today. He wrote, 5 years ago, Ken, I believe you said? At least. So this is an old document, and it's kind of the SOPs or the protocols for commission appointments. And he's got a lot of good information as to when appointments should be made, when applications should be received. What I wanted to talk about briefly is down under the advertising part of it. So there's a number of goals. Now, each one of these website listings, newsletter, social media, newspaper, they're all goals, which the word goals kind of implies aspirational and not required. I understand that. But what I would like to find out from my fellow council members, are these goals that we agree with? Are they realistic? And the reason I ask that is because the last time we made appointments, which was at our meeting on the February 10th, we appointed members to 6 different commissions, 3 of which were listed on our city website, 3 of which were not. I don't know myself whether there was any newspaper advertising done. I suspect not.
There was.
Okay.
2 times.
2 times?
Yeah.
4?
As per the SOP.
So the newspaper goal was kind of met then, you're saying?
Yes, sir.
What about the social media goal? Can you fill me in on how that worked?
Pretty sure we had at least 2 posts.
And did anything go in the newsletter?
That one failed.
Okay. So, personally, I kind of like the idea that we're doing all this. I don't know who's responsible for making sure it all happens. I'm not sure it's goals that we all think is worthwhile. I mean, it seems like kind of an onerous. I'm pleased to hear the ads were in the paper. That seems to me the hardest part. we have to pay for them, someone's got to write them, time it, to place them, to meet the various timing guidelines. Are these goals that we like going forward, or?
And I guess we have to ask Ken, what works better for you?
Well, I mean, I wrote this, so this works pretty good for me. But, you know, if you have aspirations that you would like to add it to that we can work with that. I will say on the recruiting, I would encourage, if council is looking at someone that they would like to recruit to a commission, I would suggest working with staff on that, because often staff is doing the same thing, and they have certain things they're looking for in, you know, depending on the commission. So I think it would be helpful for staff to know about that ahead of time, rather than getting an application in and going, oh, that's interesting, I wonder how that happened, and then finding out later they were recruited, and staff could have aided in that.
I think we need to get back to some of our protocol, because if every council member is calling staff and telling staff what to do, and city manager, would it be feasible if they, if council got a problem, come through you, then you get with staff, if they want to recommend somebody just to keep staff from being overworked and everybody doing the same thing, or what would be your protocol?
Well, the first comment that I would have is that I hope that the council sees this as an important responsibility that they have, so that a council member recruiting someone that they know in their community that they think would be a good member on a committee is not rare, but happens all the time. I would hope that if counselors aren't recruiting, I mean, one of your principal responsibilities, according to the charter, is to make appointments. This is your responsibility. It's one of the most important responsibilities that you have. And so I don't want anyone to leave this meeting thinking that you really don't need to worry about this, staff will take care of it or whatever. This isn't staff's responsibility. You have the authority. This is really important that you put people on from the community that represent your communities. And so I just wanted to say that if anything, if over the next year or two I saw a dramatic increase in the number of recruits we have for our committees caused by outreach by the council, I would be delighted. And I hope that happens. And so, but the point that Ken's making is an important point. We don't want to work at cross purposes or whatever, and we don't want staff to be spending a lot of time recruiting someone that you've already recruited, and you've already recruited 5 people for the one slot that there is, that staff is spending valuable time trying to recruit. So I think it's just a communications thing, but as far as I'm concerned, I hope that you recognize the importance of this function, and that if anything, you get involved even more. Once you make an appointment, someone's on a committee for 3 years or whatever, or 4 years, whatever, depending on the committee, it's very important that we recruit. There are people in the community that feel alienated, that don't feel they have a say. Well, one important way that the community can feel part of our government is to participate. And but if they think it's a closed shop, or if they don't, well, I don't know the mayor, and I'll never get on it or whatever. If there's people that have that attitude out there, then we're not going to be inclusive. We're not going to be able to get folks. And so I agree with everything Ken said, and would encourage the council, if anything, to pick up the pace in terms of getting more and more new faces and different ideas on our committees.
And I will say, Mayor, too, when I received this, we requested that Ken copy us on the applications as they come in, so that we can kind of keep on top of that. And we've been getting those on a regular basis, I think, within days of their being filled out on the website. So I commend Ken for that. So under these advertising 1, 2, 3, 4 goals, or do we want to keep all of them as goals and do our best to achieve them, or are some of them just flat out unrealistic?
So I guess the question back to Ken would be, do we get a lot of information from website? Do people respond to you from website, newsletter? They got it from newsletters or social media?
I think for the most part, the recruiting is where we get most of the people from.
Yeah.
Eric, you've talked to Guy Roberts. I'm not sure how he came to. I'm going to guess, because I don't think, that wasn't a staff recruit, and I don't think you recruited him until he showed interest. So I'm guessing he got it from one of those sources.
No, I recruited.
You recruited him. Okay, see, so, I mean, I know we've had some responses on social media, asking some questions, but honestly, I think the bulk of our appointments come from staff and council recruiting.
I think you're right. I mean, I'm on the city website a lot. I'm a little skeptical that too many of our citizens are on the city website a lot, so.
Well, when I do training for design guidelines for preservation commissions, I say, this is really a document for you, because what citizens like to do is they like to call and ask a question of a person. So even though, we put it out there for people to read, it's that person-to-person contact that I think that most people enjoy, and so I think that's why we get more people through recruiting rather than, because I don't think people wake up in the morning and go, I wonder what board I could serve on in the committee. I'm going to go on the website and find out.
They all do that, Ken.
Well, I know I do, but I'm a little strange there. So.
Well, just ironically, somebody asked me yesterday, how could they serve, volunteer, and I just said, go to the city's website, so maybe it's being utilized, so.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
I think all four would be good to continue to use so that it can include everyone. Because there are people that don't read the newspaper, and then there are people that would prefer social media. So it just depends. So I think all four would be amazing, because you just never know who's going to go where for information. And I definitely agree with staff sending over their applications to city council, so we'll all be on the same page.
And that generates directly from, as soon as they submit, it
Yes.
goes to all of you and to us. So it's immediate.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the only thing that I might add is churches. I know that there's a lot of conversations in churches about people's involvement in the community. At least there are in our church. And I think a pastor's comments about people's willingness to get involved and the importance of their getting involved might carry some weight.
Okay.
The other thing is, I function on a thing called WIIFM, what's in it for me? And I think that's a question we need to answer. What's the value? Why should people want to be involved in this rather than just, it's not just another meeting, it's a way that you can make a difference in your community.
Right, absolutely.
I like that.
Jim, I recall in one of these recent top best 10 cities to live in, or best small town to live in, and when I looked at some of the factors they were measuring to come up with that, one of the things they mentioned was degree of civic involvement, and that people want, that improve the score of a community if you have a large percentage of people who want to serve and be active in the community. And that is certainly the case with Madison. We've got so many competent citizens who give their time to us, and I think it's our responsibility to encourage that and make it as simple as we can, and to make it as widespread as people want to get that opportunity. So I agree.
And one of the things we like to do is point out that, as Eric said, one of those recent accolades that we got, they said, it's wonderful, they're tree-lined streets, they're preserved houses, and they're active downtown. And so our response on social media was, when we hear, I listed those things, when we hear that, we hear Green Space Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, and the Main Street Program.
Right.
these things don't happen by accident. So we try to remind people of that, but it's also, we don't like to toot our own horn too much.
Thank you so much, Ken, we appreciate that. Is there anything else to come before our work session this morning?
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment?
Sure, yes, sir.
I came here as the new kid on the block with the intent of just listening, and I feel like I've done a pretty decent job of that. But I want to commend the people who presented today and what they brought to this conversation, because the data and the metrics that you brought us are incredible. And I can't help but feel that they will make a serious difference in our decision-making about some pretty significant things. So thank you to everybody who shared today.
Okay, if there's nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Mr.
Are we
Mayor.
doing an executive
We're
session?
not having an
Okay.
executive session.
Okay.